Oh, goodness. It feels good to get out of this, even if it's just for a few minutes. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Oh, seriously, how are you? Let me know. Say hello. Come on. I want to hear from you. If you're watching live, say hi. If you're watching on replay, say replay. Let me know how your day is, how your week's going, and what your plans are for the weekend. I know it's getting harder and harder to do things, but still, make plans for your weekend. Let me know what they are. Oh, that's so much better. It's been a rough couple of weeks for everyone. We have had an historic election, right? Record-breaking numbers of people turned out on both sides. And yet, no landslide victory. There remains confusion about the transition, and in some people's minds, even about who won the election, right? That's not what I'm here to discuss today. Hang on, stuck in my earrings. Yeah, that's a rabbit hole I am not willing to go down. Not today, not me, maybe not ever. What I want to talk about is hard enough without that. What I want to discuss is healing the divide in our nation. And that starts with healing our relationships. Yeah, I went there. We need to heal our relationships. And I suspect that each and every one of us has people that we've blocked or unfriended, either in our real lives or in social media, and over the pandemic or politics in the last 12 to 24 months. And if you haven't, then congratulations, good for you. For the rest of us, it's time to work on patching up those relationships. Raise your hand if this makes you feel uncomfortable. It does me. Raise your hand if your first thought is, nope, not me. None of this was my fault. I was in the right, and I don't want to talk to those people. Don't want to be their friends or even acknowledge they exist. Well, guess what? You're not alone. But that's why we have a problem. That's why we have this divide in this great country. That is why, even though the Biden-Harris ticket won by 5 million votes, there were over 70 million people that voted against them. We aren't going to heal this divide in this country by being stubborn, spiteful, or isolating ourselves from people whose opinions were different from ours. Instead, we have to do the next right thing. To heal this divide, we're going to have to reach out and heal those relationships, each and every one of them. Now, I know that I have friends on here right now that are yelling at me, yelling at the screen as they're watching, and fine, go ahead and tell me what you think. Don't just yell at the screen. Let's get some dialogue going, okay? Evelyn, I know that you're one of them, and you're really good with your words. So instead of just screaming, yelling at the screen and wanting to switch channels or scroll on, talk to me, okay? Tell me what's going through your head right now. Because I'm sure that you are not the only one on this feed who has suffered a divide within your family. I know for a fact you aren't. Some of you, Evelyn's not the only one, some of you have disowned family and friends because you feel that it's inhumane to vote for someone that would take away another person's basic human rights. I get that. Me personally, I cannot vote for someone who would put children in cages. I cannot vote for someone who's racist. I have people tell me all the time that they're not racist, yet they'll vote for someone who is. They aren't doing anything to bring about equality. Folks, if you aren't part of the solution, you are part of the problem. And this year has made that quite clear. There's been a lot of damage come to light this year. And I'm not talking about the property damage that occurred during the demonstrations. We can talk for days about who caused that and not agree on an answer. No, I'm talking about the damage that triggered those demonstrations. If you are part of the damage that led to those demonstrations, then I think you're a racist and you're part of the problem. I think that there are people who have blocked you and unfriended you because of that. And there are people who have blocked me and unfriended me for saying these things about you and people like you. Now, if that triggers you, then say something below. And we'll talk about it, because these are the things that we need to mend. These are the things we need to get past. These are relationships that can be saved and moved forward while still solving the problem of racism and other issues like that. I don't know how it will be done, and I don't know what it looks like. I just know that it's the right thing to do. It's the next thing to do. Okay? Now, in my own family, there are different political parties. Imagine that. And I know some of my family are disgruntled about Biden-Harris winning. Some of them have voiced their displeasure on social media, and I'm fine with that. I really am. One of my brothers was not fine. He said something to my nephew, insinuating that my nephew had made an ill-informed choice. And my nephew fired back. He said that my brother no longer knew him well enough to make that statement, which is true. During all of this physical distancing, we have lost touch with one another. We don't know each other's values as well as we would like, perhaps not as well as we should. We don't know one another's hearts. Many people who voted in this election voted out of fear rather than out of love. Many voted out of fear that they would lose something. My nephew said he was afraid he would lose personal freedoms. He didn't say which personal freedoms he thought he would lose. Many of us are afraid of losing personal freedoms, either for ourselves or for someone we love. Now, I suspect my nephew was afraid had a fear of losing his guns. But in all honesty, I haven't asked him, and that's on me. I should have asked. I simply haven't had the time. Now, I happen to know that a number of Democrats and liberals do own guns. I don't think that either party is going to ask you to give up the guns that you currently own. Not anytime soon. But I also don't have a crystal ball. I do, however, know a number of people of color and people with certain gender issues or beliefs who want the same job opportunities as white cis people. They want to be included in job advancement opportunities. They want to be valued at work. They fear going to work because of snide comments about who they are, what color or gender they were born, things that they don't have control over. Now, I consider that a personal freedom, working without that fear. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know. Do you agree or disagree with that? I voted for that. And I voted to keep children out of cages. And I voted for my patients to not go bankrupt paying their medical bills. However, I know LGBTQ people who voted differently than I did. I don't hate them for that. I don't understand them, but I don't hate them. I would love to sit down with them over a cup of coffee and listen to their reasons. My wish would be for all of us to be able to do this without raising our voices or raising our blood pressure. I realize it may be a while before that happens, but we can start now. It's the next right thing to do. I'm asking you to be I take that back. I'm not asking you. I'm not asking you to be someone other than yourself. In fact, if you do this well, you need to know yourself well. If you do this without knowing yourself, you'll do this out of fear, not love. And fear is a great motivator. It gets people to turn out and show up, but it doesn't solve problems. Love solves problems. To do this well, you need to understand yourself, but you need to also understand other people. And I mean that in a general sense. You need to understand that different people have different values. You need to understand that certain people are more in touch with their feelings than others. In fact, there's one personality type that values relationships, community, teamwork, and harmony to the extent that they will lead the charge in healing the divide in this great nation. Unfortunately, there are a couple of other personality types that consider this much emotion to be a liability. It's not. It's just a different value set. Those other two personality types have feelings, they have emotions, they just don't show them as often. And they're the type of people who research how this is going to work and then set up the systems and processes to ensure that it does work. You see, those are the assets and the values of their personality types. And the fourth and final personality types looks for the opportune timing to put these things into place or pivots at the last minute if needed. We need all four of these groups for this to work. We need everyone to feel like they belong. We need them to feel valued. We need them to work together and learn each other's values and to value one another. Have you ever sat down and written out your own values? Have you thought about the difference between your values and being valued? How about the difference between being valued and what is your own value, your own worth? You should take some time to do that. Take an hour or two to write down your top 10 values in life. And then on that same page, write down the top 10 things you value most. They're not the same. And then think about the value you place on yourself and meditate about that for a while. Think about the fact that every single person on this planet has a value and values different things. Our values are what drives us. They drive our wants, our desires, and our decisions. They drive our communication with others. They do. We tend to speak to others based on how to get what we desire, what we value, what we want. If we value different things than our neighbors or our family member, then we're going to speak to them based on that desire. We speak based on what we want, but we forget that everyone wants to be valued. Everyone wants to be appreciated. Everyone wants to feel like they belong, especially in their own home, in their own country. We have to learn to speak to one another and listen to one another, like we all belong here, right? I have to learn to speak to my neighbor from his or her values. If I don't, I will never really hear what they have to say. Do you see what I'm getting at? We have to hear with an open heart. We have to learn to speak and listen from other people's viewpoints, their value-based views. Let me give you an example. I work with another coach whose name is Sue, and Sue's in her 70s, and she has an older brother. If she's in her 70s and he's older, I don't know how old he is, but he's older. And she says when they were kids, they never got along. They fought and argued constantly. And she said it really wasn't pretty. It wasn't the kind of fighting that was, we kind of bicker a little bit. She said, no, they fought constantly. It was really ugly stuff. And in their 20s and 30s, they didn't get along they didn't speak to one another much at all. About 5 years ago, she went through this coaching training, this personality science-based bank methodology training, and she learned about her personality type and it helped her understand her values better. But she also learned about the other personality types and their values. And at a family function, she had her brother figure out his personality type, or crack his code, as we call it. And since then, their relationship has really grown. And I think she said the other day that they actually now live in the same home, and they have for a while. And she said they get along so well. She said the little things that used to set them on edge and have them fighting with each other, they now laugh about. She says they laugh constantly. They laugh all the time. They'll do something that would trigger them, and now they just sit down and they just giggle about it. And that's what this is about. That's the kind of relationship healing we can have. We cannot move forward and heal our country with hate in our hearts. It has to be done with love. And this is how we do it. We learn one another's values. I'm not asking you to forgive right now. I'm not asking you to respect one another's viewpoints. Just learn their values. You don't have to adapt or accept all their values. You don't have to agree with all their values. Just make an effort to learn what they are. Here, do the little things first. Find common ground. Do you both like cookies? I mean, who doesn't like cookies? Do you like a cool glass of water on a hot summer day? There may be other things you prefer more, but do you like a cool glass of water on a hot summer day? Do you like the colors of the sunset? Then once you've found common ground, learn their true values, the harder stuff. Once you've learned their values, stop attacking one another. If you attack others, then they may never speak their true mind, their true feelings. And if they never do those things, you'll never get the opportunity to truly listen, right? Right? Seriously, how we approach others will alert them as to whether or not we really want to listen. Nobody wants to be attacked. In my coaching group, we often ask the question, how do you want to be sold to, or how do you want to be approached in a sales situation? Well, the truth is, nobody wants to be sold to, and everything is a sales situation. You see, everybody wants to buy, but nobody wants to be sold to. And everything is sales, from getting your children to go to bed to agreeing on what to have for dinner. I think the last one is the hardest part of my day, right? So the real question behind the question is this: how do you want to be spoken to? And the answer is pure gold. You see, the answer is different for different people, and it relies on their values. Let me give you another example. Someone who values responsibility, rules, and credentials and titles is going to want to be spoken to in a very specific way. They'll want to hear about your processes and systems. They want to know if your plans are predictable. They don't want pie in the sky fairy tales about what you think you might be able to accomplish at some nebulous date in the future. Yet someone who values relationships, authenticity, and morality doesn't care about the details. They may be more concerned about your contribution to the team rather than the specifics of the systems and the processes. So it helps to know the values of the person to whom you're speaking if you want to draw them out, if you want them to open up and really tell you how they feel and why they feel that way. You have to be able to build rapport. So doing that requires more than just common ground. It requires active work. It requires the kind of work we teach in our coaching. And it requires emotional intelligence. You're probably going to fail a time or two. Just don't give up. We'll talk about failure at another time. So how do you learn someone's values? Maybe you grew up with them and you've always known. Maybe. However, as my nephew said, we've become more disconnected during this pandemic. We don't know each other as well as we should. We don't know each other's hearts like we used to. So what do? I have some relationship and communication classes coming up next year for those of you who want to wait. But I'm not going to be able to get those on the calendar until February or later. For those of you who want to start working on this now, I have a Codebreaker Summit. I can't talk right now. Let me get some water. This is one of the problems of wearing these masks all day is we really get dehydrated. For those of you who want to start working on this sooner, I have a Codebreaker Summit coming up next week. Drop something below and let me know you're interested, and I'll make sure you get the information. Meanwhile, be brave enough to listen, really listen. Build trust, establish rapport, and truly listen. Then we can rebuild these relationships and cure the divide in our country. We may have to do it one relationship at a time, but we can do it. I'm willing. Are you? Tell me your thoughts, feelings, and opinions below. Keep it clean. And remember, a rising tide raises all ships. Have a great weekend.